Get ready for another electrifying episode of Yellow Metal TV with your host, Chris Canon. Here's Chris.
Welcome to this special edition of Yellow Metal TV Hot Tips and Tricks. You know, at Yellow Metal TV, we listen to our viewers. And once in a while, we get some good mail. This week, we've got a letter from William Roberts in Wisconsin. He writes to us, "Dear Yellow Metal TV, I look forward to your show and was wondering if you could help me." Well, we're going to help you, William. You're in luck. I'm a backhoe operator and I'm trying to find someone who can show me how to cross footing trenches when the form boards are in place. I've heard how to do it, but I want to see it done. Could you help? Absolutely. And let me warn you, this maneuver involves raising the backhoe off the ground in order to clear the form boards in the process. This can be dangerous if done incorrectly, so this isn't for beginning operators. We turn to the National Association of Heavy Equipment Training Schools, who's currently doing a backhoe video training series called Yellow Metal Boot Camp in cooperation with Volvo Construction Equipment and Volvo Rent Stores. And we caught up with instructor Blake Vernon at the Nevada School of Construction, which is the NAHETS school where this is being filmed. Blake is the operator featured in the series, and he has 13 years of experience on backhoes in construction-related situations. So he was a good guy to go talk to about this. And he was gracious enough to share with us just how he's been doing this maneuver for years.
In front of me is a temporary form board system to represent a form board for concrete and a footing for a building, hypothetical building situation. We're going to cross this using a step process, first placing the bucket over and sequentially going over step by step without caving in the trench wall, touching the form board, and arriving at the other side safely. As the operator approaches the form board, very crucial element as we see the metal stakes that hold up this form board should be placed in between or on the outside of the front tires. At this time, the operator looks at this and he wants to get the close as he can to that form board without touching it. So in my case, I would like to, a little more to the right side would be appropriate for the front tires, and that's how close I'd like to be. What the operator tries to do here is he wants to get completely parallel to the board. Now, as I have turned, my left front tire is closer than my right. I am losing distance. At this moment, I would back the machine up. I would make it parallel to this shot so that I can get even closer. Every inch makes all the difference. As I get closer, I want to get the primary contact point of a front bucket on the ground as soon as possible. As I do this, it provides one crucial element. I take the weight off of the side of the trench and transfer it to the other side of the front wheels. As I do this, I go as close as I can to that form board. As I look at the form board and I'm satisfied with how close I am to this form board, I start to place the pressure on the other side. As I put down pressure on the bucket, I recognize that the wheels come off the ground. Now at this stage, it's a possibility that the operator will cave the other side of the trench in if he doesn't do one element, which is this. While my left foot is on this brake and I push down on the front control, it will pull the machine's front bucket, loader bucket towards me, caving in the trench. So once I've acquired this traction, I simply let off the brake. As I let off the brake, I arrive at the form board, no closer than this. As we move that machine up, it's going to change the radius position. So as I let off the brake, I want to feather the brake and make sure it samples so I can stay right in this position. From here on out, I can simply raise up the front. I'm keeping my eye on the shadow that the light has in front of the tire to guarantee that I'm not touching it yet. As I go up, I know that physically the back tires will roll towards the trench. The tires want to hit the form board, so I will also dump my bucket to help in that. If the operator gets too close, he can simply put it in reverse and back up just a little bit if he's too close. As I see the shadow of the tread going across that piece of wood, I know that I'm close, but I'm not touching it. As I keep going up, I want to make sure that the back tires are not rolling. Another common mistake for an operator is to grab the park and brake handle and set it. What happens is, as I push up, it forces the front bucket this direction and caving in my trench, which I don't want to. So the wheels on the back wheels are kept completely free moving in this situation. I know that I have more lift, so I would like to use it by pushing down. If there's any question on how close you are, you can back up just a little bit. Let off the brake, and once again, raise yourself up. And gain elevation as I keep going over. Now I know my front tire now is approximately over it. How far do I go? I keep going all the way over, and notice my feet are not anywhere near the brake system. I am completely trusting the contact of the cutting edge, because if I were to apply the brakes at this time and roll the bucket would curl, caving in the system. The distance that I decide to is all the way over until the bucket is flat face on the ground. But keep in mind, on a four-wheel drive backhoe, there's a transfer case and a drive line and sometimes rock guards underneath. The operator is required to look under this machine before he operates it to find out how low it sits. Some models sit very low. They might touch the form board really quickly. The next step is to use the drive function of the machine. I apply the brake, put it in a forward gear, and now I control my forward movement, and I'm going to slide the front bucket right up until the point where the back tires are close to the form board. Now the risk in this is I have a lot of weight on my back tires. I don't want to cave in that wall. So what I do is I reach behind me and I lower my outriggers down so that immediately I can take the pressure off once I arrive there. How far off the ground? Just a little bit. Same with both sides. The operator is still facing forward now. He can't do any movement with the boom on the back, the backhoe boom. Therefore, as he puts it in forward gear, he allows the machine, while keeping a visual reference of where that form board is, he allows the machine to drive forward until he gets close enough that he's comfortable that he wants to lower the outriggers. As the operator moves forward, everything's controlled off the brake. If the machine does not want to roll, a simple acceleration will help out to get him there. At this time, it's good to keep your hands on the outrigger control so that the moment that you would like, you can simply place them down, taking the stress off the sidewall quickly, because vibration from an engine through tires will eventually cave it in if it's soft. At this point right here, I would be satisfied with the distance that I can place my front tires on the other side, which we'll do. I take the pressure off the back tires by lowering both sides down. And as you can see, I've completely transferred the weight from front to back so that the trench wall has no stress on it. The next step is also a crucial step. You have the capacity to cave it in again by using the front tires. So as I decide the next step, I make sure that my front tires are going to land in the appropriate position. So as I bring my loader arms up, my transaxle or underneath the machine might contact that form board, so I use two-hand operation. Left hand on the loader control, right hand on the stabilizer, bringing it up and going down. Bringing it up, back end up, front end down. The reason that you have to raise the back end up, as you lower the front, that transmission could land right on top of it. Now I'm at this position. I notice my front tires are very close to the ground. The form board is well above it. My concern now is if I raise the front loader arms off the ground and transfer weight to the ground, I might cave it in. So that's a very big concern in this case. So if there's any concern at all of not being close up the form board, I could turn around, use the backhoe, and push it a little bit further. That's a good question. It might do it. At this time, by raising the front loader arms and applying pressure with the front tires, which is a necessity at this point, our goal is to take this bucket, flip it around, and put it flat on the ground. The ground seems firm. Another common mistake is, as this dirt is pushed, if you notice underneath my bucket, it creates a small ridge of dirt. If it was extremely soft, it would create a large ridge, which would, in my next step, stop the wheels from going over. So out of an easy tip situation, I spread it out during this step, simply by bringing it with me as I lower it to the ground so that I have a smooth operation all the way through. At this segment here, I'm going to use a front bucket to slide. So I don't want the cutting edge down sharp, and I don't want it extremely back. I want it so that it's slightly back so it'll slide. As the machine has to go higher in the back end, I always leave it a little bit off the ground, and we'll see the difference in the gap beneath the front bucket and the ground once I start moving the back section of this machine. Once again, before I make my next step, I get a roundabout's look. It's off the ground. My cave wall, the wall of the trench is not caved in, and I can see my form board here and over here. At this stage, I move to the back end of the machine and start to push it over. As with any operations on a backhoe, the backhoe has multiple functions. One of its functions is to simply push itself around to small areas without having to drive it with the wheels. A common error is to place the teeth of the backhoe bucket in a position that will allow it to slide or cut, which we don't want in this position. I want the teeth to grip and stay in position. So, two mistakes. The first mistake is this one. As I push off, my teeth are like this. Largely it contributed to sliding once I start to push, which I don't want. Another mistake is if the teeth are too far in, and when I start to push off, I simply slide, and in the next motion, we'll see how critical. I do not want to stick this machine over the top of the trench and have myself in a position where I can't let myself down. In this case, the proper angle for most any push application is about right there. Another common problem is an operator who starts to push off and the dipper or the crowd is too far out from the machine. If we were to continue pushing in this direction, the machine would not have enough distance to make it over the top of the trench, and therefore stucking us right over the top of the trench again. What's the best position to place the dipper or the crowd? My personal tip is to go in until it stops and back it out about 2 feet, and that's a great position. The physics on a backhoe boom are similar to a human's arm. By taking an arm and closing it, and we tie it here, it has no strength. But as that arm opens up, we have full strength in this area, similar to this. The reason why we do not bring it all the way in is because of there is no strength here once we push off. By bringing it out to about right there, I'm ready for this next step process to jump form boards. Before I make the move, I simply look back and confirm that everything's ready to go. My bucket's off the ground slightly. My outriggers are still down. I now start to move the back end up in the air. My goal is this, as any safety issue on this machine, is to make sure visually that the front bucket soon touches the ground to stabilize the machine. When I raise this up, we're going to find that the bucket wants to go down, and that's my goal. That's why I leave a gap in the front so I can quickly do this without having to do two-handed operation too soon. As I push down on my boom, the outriggers play a crucial part on the next step. If I don't raise them up, I will find myself at the last stage of this maneuver with the outriggers contacting that form board, thus cracking the board or destroying it. In this position, I transferred my stability from these to my front bucket. The front bucket is a very crucial element right at this point. As I continue moving up in elevation, I want to look back and make sure my front tires are not rolling back towards the trench. Because of the angle, if I keep moving up, it pulls my front tires in. So I simply bump my crowd or my dipper, and I want to move that way just a little bit. I look over and confirm that my form board can still have about probably a foot to 8 inches of distance from my tire. Therefore, I will do that, pushing it that direction. Now my front tire is moving away from the trench. That is my main concern right now. A trench that's caved in does no good. The object of this maneuver, safely move over. The trench should stay identically from where it was cut. As I continue to move up, I notice I'm putting more weight on my front bucket. So now I have a two-handed operation. One up and one releasing pressure. The purpose of this next step is to allow the front tires to do all the work of the next move. So as I push down on my back, I raise up on the front. I might feel the machine start to lean a little bit. As long as that bucket is close to the ground, the machine will lean only as much as the bucket's contacted. Therefore, if I have any inclination that there's something wrong, the emergency situation is left hand, bucket down, stabilize the machine. I don't want a large amount of contact on this, so I will raise it up a little more as I continue to arrive at the elevation above that form board. The question you might ask yourself, I don't have any way to find out with my seatbelt fastened how high this form board is. The rule of thumb is just go extra high. At this point right here, I know that I'm still lacking height to crawl over this form board. I'll continue to raise up the back end, which lowers the boom, and also control the front loader arms. I notice the front tire is a little close. I'll bump it again, move it away. I'll continue the operation. The front tire is crawling towards that trench, so I will bump it again. Now at this time, I can't see form board or tire. I trust with experience that my height will clear that form board, and if there's any question, the operator should safely dismount the machine, question personnel on the ground to confirm that. Once again, at any point where the operator has any tendency to feel there's something wrong, a good tip is to take left hand always, push it away. It will level out the machine safely until you can figure out what's wrong. The boom on this machine must be straight out. You cannot do this with it slightly to the left or the right, or it will cause the machine to naturally tilt. I'm going to let the front wheels do all the work. I want to go higher. My front wheels are crawling towards that trench. I push off a little more. At this point, I know that I could probably clear this form board or go a little higher. If I have any questions, I will go higher. There's no doubt that at this angle that I've cleared it and I can push myself completely clear of it. With every machine, the operator with time gets very good at knowing at what distance and what gap is from the top of a form board to the bottom of a tire. The operator at this point asks himself, what's my main concern? The main concern is only towards the front of the machine, allowing the bucket to contact the ground 100% of the time. If that rule is broken, the high liability of this machine to be tipped over will occur. At this point, I like the height that I'm at. I will simply push the machine away from the bucket, continuing the motion across the form boards. As I push, I can feel contact with my front bucket, which is good. If there's too much contact, it's not. Once again, my bucket's there to control my left and right sway to protect me from tipping over. The outriggers, at this point, do no good in the air. Some would say, let's raise them up all the way to the top. At this point here, they don't do any better than they were down. The reason why an operator leaves them out, if the worst case scenario happens, that there is a common mistake made in this move, that if it starts to tip over, the machine physically is wide enough to hold itself in this position without completely going over on the ROPS or the rollover protection structure. Once again, my outriggers are all the way down. I can't see them, and eventually I'll hear the inevitable crunch of the wood where I've destroyed the form board. I'm ready to push off. I like the height. My front tires have a majority of the weight of the front of the machine. I'll continue to push off at this point. It's always a good habit to think the opposite of what you're thinking, which is I want to go down now. If you go down too soon, the bucket comes off the ground and we lose control. So the good habit is to go up. It's safer. While that bucket's in that position, it's a good, safe idea to keep going up on the boom. Now as I push off, I feel the contact of the front bucket. I can leave it there knowing that it's touching the ground. It's good. The operator can go in small movements until he's sure of the position that he likes. If we notice the backhoe portion at this time, the dipper connects the bucket to the upper pin. The dipper now is starting to go past 0 degrees. The problem with this is as we push off, the machine goes down. So we always have to compensate our right hand on this type of control up in the air while we push off on the left. In this case, both of them are simultaneously pushed to compensate for height and distance. Once again, at any question of problems, the operator should always get his hands off the controls and automatically reach back and make sure that this is touching the ground, which will stabilize the operator and the machine. Occasionally, I reach back and just kind of feel where that front bucket is. That's a good area. I know that my rear tires have cleared the footing at this point, and I could start descending or lowering the machine. If the operator decides to do this at this time, he must compensate the front bucket and maintain it on the ground. If the operator decides not to, he can continue in an upward fashion in midair, constantly giving pressure to the front cutting edge by going up. At this time, we know we're far enough. If I decide to go down, I do a two-handed operation, left hand on the front loader controls, right hand on my main boom. As I lower the front bucket, I raise the rear. As I lower the front, and I compensate both systems. If I were to just raise the rear I find myself in a predicament of starting to tip the machine over. If there's any question, once again, quickly, front bucket down, stabilize the machine. At one point I decide to look down. I want to see where my form board is. At this point, I have a little bit more of push just by rotating the bucket. Obviously, if we lower these outriggers, we're going to cave the trench in. What's the alternative? If the machine has an extended boom, we can simply push ourselves back the extended amount, or we know that the rear tires are on solid ground. So we simply keep the outriggers in a safe position. At this time right here, by the bucket being down, we can lower it down the rest of the way. If the machine's parking brake, while activated, will keep the tires from rolling in position, and an experienced operator can maneuver this machine with the outriggers in this position very calmly and very fluid-like in order to get the boom safely stowed back. I'm at a point now, if I raise my boom the remaining amount, the front end's going to be very light. We can see at this point that all of the weight's on the tires. The operator should not make quick, jerky movements at this point if he's in this position. If this machine does not have an extended boom system, he can simply stow the boom, turn his seat around and drive away. If this has an extended boom, this would be the proper procedure. We'll place the teeth back down in the ground. And on this model of machine, the extended boom is on my right foot. The machine will be pushed away I am safely at a position now which I can lower the outriggers, bring the boom up, bring the extended boom in, and verify that everything's in order. Curl up. At this point, the operator can turn around. Of course, leaving the outriggers down first is safety. RPMs are down. Raise your outriggers one at a time. And now the operator has the ability to continue on to the project inside the property.
This special edition of Yellow Metal TV Hot Tips and Tricks is brought to you by the National Association of Heavy Equipment Training Schools in cooperation with Volvo Construction Equipment, Nevada School of Construction, and Volvo Rents.